Josh Radnor played one of the most hated characters in sitcom history. His most famous co-star just admitted on a podcast to years of real friction between them on set. He headlined a series finale so despised that furious fans went and recut the ending themselves. And there are whole articles out there openly asking why Hollywood quietly stopped casting him. So how did the lovable everyman of one of TV's biggest comedies turn into the guy everyone loves to hate? Let's get into it. Start with the reputation, because it is genuinely rough. For a man who spent 9 years as television's favorite hopeless romantic, Josh Radnor inspires a strange amount of online venom. Spend any real time around How I Met Your Mother fans and you find it fast. Ranking lists, rants, and comment threads where his character, Ted Mosby, gets dragged as the most annoying part of his own show for a lead on one of the biggest comedies of its era, with no public scandal to his name. That is a remarkable amount of heat. Ted turns up on list after list of the most irritating people ever put on a TV screen. Back in 2013, a Yahoo piece flat out called Ted one of the most irritating characters on television, describing him as neurotic, a little rude, bad with women, and above all, pretentious. A 2012 essay was even colder, brushing Ted off as an annoying and forgettable character on a forgettable sitcom. And the wild part is the show knew exactly what it had. How I Met Your Mother built whole stretches around the idea that Ted is insufferable, including an entire episode about Ted walking into a party packed with snobs and fitting right in like he was home. Fans have a whole catalog of grievances. The way Ted turns every breakup into a monologue. The blue French horn he steals to prove a point. The endless speeches about destiny and the universe and finding the one. And the finale only poured gasoline on all of it. After 9 years of promising this was the story of how Ted met the mother, the show killed her off and pushed Ted straight back to Robin, which a lot of viewers read as proof that Ted never actually grew. He just wore everyone down. For a character already seen as selfish and self-important, it was the worst possible send-off. So when people say they hate Josh Radnor, the feeling is real, and it is everywhere. The only question worth asking is who they are actually mad at, because almost none of it points where the title promises it will. Here's the first inconvenient truth. Most of the people who say they hate Josh Radnor have never had a single thought about Josh Radnor. They are talking about Ted. Before this show, Radnor was a working actor with small parts and no real public identity. Then he spent nearly a decade as Ted, beamed into living rooms every Monday night, and audiences did what audiences always do with a long-running character. They fused the two into one person. It is the oldest trap in television. Play one character long enough and the audience stops believing you are anyone else. Mark Hamill spent decades as Luke Skywalker. Matthew Perry never fully shook Chandler. Radnor got the same sentence, except the character he was welded to happened to be one fans love to hate. Every time Ted gave a smug speech or made a breakup about himself, it stuck to the actor's face. A widely shared looper piece about his career made the point directly that viewers imprinted Ted onto Radnor and basically never let go. So a giant slice of this so-called hate is really just 9 seasons of a character the writers deliberately built to be exhausting. That is not an actor problem. That is the job working a little too well. And Radnor has felt that fusion firsthand. He has spoken about how completely audiences merge him with Ted, to the point that for years after the show ended, he treated every new role with suspicion, scared of being trapped as the same lovesick guy forever. Hold on to that, because it matters for the washed-up story everyone loves to tell about him. But there is one real story of friction on that set, and it is the closest thing this whole title actually has to offer, and it comes from the biggest name on the show. When this story broke in early 2026, the entertainment press pounced. A stunning confession, one headline called it. A bromance on screen, the write-up said, but off camera, not so much. Here is what actually happened. Neil Patrick Harris went on Radnor's own rewatch podcast, How We Made Your Mother, which Radnor co-hosts with series creator Craig Thomas. And out of nowhere, Harris admitted that for a long stretch of filming, he had assumed his performance annoyed Radnor. Radnor sounded genuinely blindsided and asked him to explain. So Harris laid it out. The two of them had opposite assignments on that show. Harris was locked in on the comedy, the big swings, the spit takes and the bits, while Radnor was the one carrying the emotional weight of every episode. By his own admission, Harris was fairly indifferent to the heart and the pathos of a scene, because Barney was never written to carry that. That was Ted's job, and Ted's job belonged to Radnor. So when Radnor wanted a scene to land as something real, Harris was right there next to him clowning, and he could feel the frustration coming off him. His own description was that he figured Radnor was annoyed by the gnat buzzing around all day doing bits. Now if you froze the clip right there, you would have your thumbnail. Co-star admits Ted Mosby got on his nerves, but that is not where it ends. Harris went out of his way to say he was not airing dirty laundry, he was just describing two different styles colliding, and Radnor's read was that the tension was mostly confusion between actor and character. Barney spent the entire series being dismissive of Ted, and Harris played it so well it bled into the room. In Radnor's own words, he sometimes felt dismissed by Neil, but he was really being dismissed by Barney. Looking back, he said he was delighted by their weird chemistry. So the single most cited piece of Josh Radnor beef turns out to be two friends sitting together on one of their own podcasts a decade later, gently laughing about it. That is not hate. That is a work marriage. Craig Thomas, sitting right there, jumped in to say the clash was a feature and not a bug, that it took all those different instincts smashing into each other to make the show work at all. Here's a thread that almost never makes the hate videos. Radnor has admitted that fame never sat easy on him. Looking back on that same podcast, he talked about how hard the adjustment was, going from a working actor to a face that millions of strangers suddenly felt they owned. Some people are built for that kind of overnight fame. By his own telling, he was not, at least not at the start. And when someone looks visibly uncomfortable with celebrity, audiences tend to read it as coldness, or aloofness, or thinking you are better than the room. It is one more ordinary thing that quietly gets filed under arrogance. Quick gut check before we keep going. Be honest with me. Did you actually find Ted Mosby insufferable, or do you think the hate train got way out of hand? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone. So if his co-stars are not lining up to torch him, where does the real-life version of the hate come from? The answer is the thing Radnor did the second he got famous. He got earnest. While the rest of the cast leaned into being celebrities, Radnor turned himself into a sincere multi-hyphenate. Writer, director, novelist, musician. He wrote and directed two indie films, Happy Thank You More Please in 2010, which actually won an audience award at Sundance but landed to mixed reviews, and Liberal Arts in 2012, a quiet, talky movie about a 30-something who falls back in love with the feeling of being on a college campus. Critics immediately filed him next to Zach Braff in Garden State, that very specific lane of the TV actor who pivots to soft, soul-searching indie cinema, which a certain kind of viewer simply cannot stand. He gives long, bookish interviews about meaning and growth in literature. There is a whole running joke online that paints him as the guy in the front row of a film class clutching a David Foster Wallace paperback. He started a folk music project and put out albums. He wrote and talked a lot about meaning and presence in the inner life, the kind of seeking, self-help adjacent sincerity that the irony-soaked corners of the internet smell like blood in the water. In an era where being too genuine is its own punchline, Radnor was almost aggressively genuine. Zach Braff caught the same hands for the same reason. There is a specific type of viewer who watches a sitcom actor pick up an acoustic guitar and start talking about the soul and reaches straight for the eye roll. And none of that is a crime. But it handed people a flesh and blood version of Ted's pretension to aim at, and the internet happily took the shot. The character made him a target. The persona kept him one. Which leads to the meanest headline that follows him around to this day. The flat claim that Hollywood simply stopped casting Josh Radnor. After the show wrapped in 2014, he mostly vanished from big mainstream roles, and the internet read that silence as a verdict. Washed up, quietly disliked, dropped. The real story is far less dramatic and a lot more deliberate. Radnor has said he started running every offer through what he called a How I Met Your Mother algorithm, deliberately turning down anything that smelled like another lovesick guy chasing a wife around New York. He did not go hunting for the next big network sitcom. He went to Broadway and did a heavy drama about Islamophobia, playing a morally compromised man. He played a morphine-addicted surgeon on a PBS Civil War series. He put out folk records under his own name. Think about how strange that actually is. The guy from one of the biggest comedies of its decade chose Pulitzer-winning theater about Islamophobia over the easy money of another 4-camera sitcom. He chose a slow PBS period drama over a quick network paycheck. That is not someone scrambling for work. That is someone with the freedom to be picky. And the irony is thick because while the internet calls him finished, he has quietly built the kind of varied, respectable body of work plenty of sitcom stars would envy. Stage, prestige drama, music, just none of it loud enough to trend. That is not the resume of a man Hollywood blacklisted. That is a man who looked at the most famous role of his life and walked the other way on purpose. A lot of people saw him step back and decided it must mean he got pushed out. So after all of it, here is the honest scorecard. Does Hollywood hate Josh Radnor? On the record, the answer is no. There is no parade of co-stars calling him a nightmare, no difficult on-set exposés, no scandal sitting out there. The single juiciest item in existence is Neil Patrick Harris softly confessing, on Radnor's own show, that he once thought he got on the guy's nerves. What Josh Radnor really has is a reputation problem, and it might be one of the strangest in modern television. Most hated actors did something. A bad take, a public blow-up, a story that got out. Radnor did not. He just acted too well, and then lived too sincerely. He played a character written to be so precisely, deliberately annoying that the character swallowed the actor whole. Then he chose a sincere, artsy, bookish public life that gave the pile on a permanent place to land. And think about who actually generates this so-called hate. It is not directors refusing to hire him. It is not co-stars leaking stories to the trades. It is forum threads, ranking videos, and comment sections. The exact places where a fictional character and the person who played him get permanently blurred together. The people who have actually shared a set with him are the ones who keep showing up on his podcast to laugh with him. The hate is loud, it is constant, and it is aimed almost entirely at a guy who is half made up. Whether that is fair or whether he earned a little of it himself, I am going to let you be the judge. That is the real story behind one of the internet's favorite punching bags. A man who got so good at playing someone irritating that everyone forgot there was a difference between the two. No co-star is out there calling him a nightmare, but he played a self-absorbed man so convincingly that the role swallowed him whole, and then he handed the haters a flesh and blood target by being relentlessly, almost defiantly earnest. A good chunk of this pile-on he walked straight into. So tell me in the comments and be honest. Did Josh Radnor get a raw deal, or did he earn every bit of this reputation? I genuinely want to hear it. If you like this kind of thing, where we pull the real story from the myth, subscribe. We do a new one every week.